My name's Maya, I'm 25 years old, and I swear I'll never forget the way that night felt. You know those moments where the room goes silent for you, even though people are laughing and clinking glasses around you? That was me at my own birthday dinner. I had spent weeks planning it, picked the restaurant, made the reservations, even bought myself a new dress because, honestly, no one else was going to make the effort for me. My family doesn't really do celebrations for me, not the way they do for my brother, Ryan. He's the golden child. Always has been. So there we were, sitting around this long table at a fancy steakhouse downtown, and Dad cleared his throat. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded check, and slid it across the table toward Ryan. I could see the numbers from where I sat, $50,000. Dad said it like he was making an announcement, like everyone should clap, for your business idea, son. I believe in you. I forced a smile, even though my stomach sank. I knew what was coming before it happened. Dad turned to me, his face hardening the way it always did when he looked at me. And Maya, he said, you still owe me $3,000 from that college loan. Don't think I've forgotten. It felt like someone had just poured cold water over my head. Everyone laughed awkwardly. Ryan patted Dad on the back, and Mom looked down at her napkin like she always does when she doesn't want to get involved. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. I just pulled out my own card, paid the bill, over $400, and stood up. Happy birthday to me, I said quietly to myself, and walked out without another word. That was 4 months ago. Now I'm staring at my phone, heart pounding, because I have 42 unread messages from Mom. When I woke up that morning, the first thing I saw was the flood of notifications lighting up my phone. 42 unread messages from Mom. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and scrolled through. At first, they were short, frantic bursts. Maya, please answer me. It's about your father. This is serious. My stomach tightened. For a second, I thought maybe something terrible had happened, like a heart attack. But as I scrolled down, the tone shifted. Your father needs your help. The business deal with Ryan isn't going the way he planned. He's asking if you can come home this weekend. I stopped reading right there. 4 months of silence after my birthday dinner, and now they suddenly needed me? My hands shook, not from worry, but from anger I had buried deep down. I could still hear Dad's voice in my head, telling me I owed him money while he wrote Ryan a check that could have wiped out my student loans and left me debt-free. I remembered how I smiled through it, swallowed my pride, and walked away. And now? Now they wanted something from me. I tossed the phone onto the bed and got up to make coffee. But as the machine hummed, I caught myself staring at the wall, thinking about all the times I had been brushed aside. How Ryan got the new car when we were teenagers while I had to save for a beat-up Honda. How Mom always said, don't upset your father, Maya, you know how he gets. How every achievement of mine, honors classes, scholarships, landing my job, was treated like a given, while Ryan's smallest successes were celebrated like miracles. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Mom. Please, Maya. He needs you. We all need you. I sat back down, sipped my coffee slowly, and smiled to myself for the first time in months. Because for once, the ball was in my court. I didn't answer Mom right away. Instead, I let her messages sit there while I went through my normal morning routine, shower, coffee, scrolling through work emails. But the truth? My mind wasn't on any of that. It was spinning, replaying her words over and over. He needs you. We all need you. The irony wasn't lost on me. When had they ever needed me before? I'd been the reliable one, the quiet one, the one who didn't ask for much. And because I never demanded, they never offered. That birthday dinner had been the breaking point for me. I had finally stopped trying to prove myself to people who never wanted to see me. But now they were coming to me. Around noon, I finally typed out a reply. What exactly happened? It didn't take long before Mom was calling me. Her voice was shaky, rushed, like she'd been waiting for this all morning. Your father invested in Ryan's business idea, she explained. It was supposed to be a new app, something about food delivery. I don't even know the details. But the money is gone. All of it. 50,000. And now your father's, well, he's furious. He's blaming Ryan, but you know how he gets. He's taking it out on everyone. She paused, her breath heavy. Maya, I need you to come talk to him. Maybe you can talk some sense into him. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Talk some sense into him? The same man who belittled me at my own birthday dinner. Who still treated me like the daughter who owed him, while his son burned through money like it grew on trees. Part of me wanted to hang up right then. But another part of me, darker, sharper, felt something else. A pull. This was an opportunity. Not to help. But to finally shift the balance of power. After I hung up with Mom, I sat in silence for a long time, my phone still in my hand. The old me, the one desperate for approval, would have rushed home, eager to patch things up, to play mediator between my father's temper and my brother's failures. But that girl was gone. She'd walked out of that steakhouse 4 months ago and hadn't looked back. Instead, I opened my laptop and started digging. If Ryan had blown through 50 grand, I wanted to know how. He'd always been reckless with money, credit cards maxed out by 21, borrowing from friends he never paid back, and yet somehow Dad always came to his rescue. But I needed proof this time, something more solid than family gossip. A few clicks on LinkedIn, a couple of searches on Instagram, and there it was, Ryan's business. He'd launched a food delivery app that looked like a copy of a dozen others, slapped together with cheap graphics and a name so generic it almost made me laugh. Worse, his personal Instagram told the real story: nights out at clubs, new sneakers every other week, and even a weekend trip to Vegas just 2 months ago. So that's where the money went. Not into an app. Into his lifestyle. I felt a spark inside me, something hot and electric. For years, I had swallowed their favoritism, their dismissals, their constant reminders that I owed them. But now? They were the ones in a hole. And I had the chance to decide whether I'd pull them out, or bury them deeper. That night, I texted Mom back. I'll come by this weekend. But if Dad wants to talk, it'll be on my terms. Her reply was instant. Thank you, Maya. You don't know what this means to us. But she was wrong. I knew exactly what it meant. It meant my turn had finally come. The drive back to my hometown felt heavier than I expected. It wasn't far, just under 2 hours, but every mile seemed to peel away the independence I'd built for myself in those 4 months. The closer I got, the more I felt that old knot in my stomach, the one I used to carry every time I walked through my parents' front door. When I finally pulled up to the house, everything looked the same. The perfectly trimmed lawn, the flag Dad insisted on hanging out front, the same dent in the garage door from when Ryan backed into it years ago and never got in trouble for it. My chest tightened, but I squared my shoulders and walked up the steps. Mom opened the door before I could knock. She looked tired, lines deeper around her eyes, hair tied back in a messy bun. Maya, she said, pulling me into a hug like nothing had ever happened. I'm so glad you came. I hugged her back briefly but pulled away quickly. Where's Dad? She hesitated. In his study. He's not in the best mood. No surprise there. I walked in, and the air inside the house smelled like old wood and coffee. Ryan was slouched on the couch, controller in hand, playing video games like a kid. He glanced up, smirked, and said, "Well, look who finally decided to show." I ignored him. I wasn't here for him. I knocked on Dad's study door and stepped in without waiting for an answer. He sat at his desk, papers spread everywhere, a glass of whiskey half empty beside him. He looked older than I remembered, but his eyes were still sharp, calculating. "Maya," he said flatly. "Glad you could finally make the time." I sat down across from him, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I hear you've got a problem," I said. His jaw tightened, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had the upper hand. Dad leaned back in his chair, swirling the whiskey in his glass. He studied me the way he always did, like he was searching for weakness. For most of my life, I'd shrunk under that gaze. Not this time. You've heard about your brother's little misstep, he said, voice low but edged with irritation. Blowing $50,000 isn't a misstep, Dad, I replied. My tone was calm, measured. It's a disaster. His eyes narrowed. Watch your mouth. That's still my son you're talking about. I almost laughed. Your son. Last I checked, I was your daughter. Didn't stop you from humiliating me at my own birthday dinner. For a second, something flickered in his expression. Guilt? Maybe. But he covered it quickly. That was different. You do owe me money. Don't think I've forgotten that. I leaned forward. $3,000. Compared to the 50 you just burned on Ryan, that's nothing. But you know what? I paid you back a long time ago. Every time you overlooked me. Every time you reminded me I wasn't good enough. Every time I kept quiet while Ryan screwed up and you bailed him out. That was me paying my debt. He slammed his glass down, and the sound echoed through the room. Don't you dare come in here and lecture me. You think because you've got a job and a little apartment, you know better than me? I built this family. I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled out my phone and slid it across his desk. The screen was open to Ryan's Instagram, Vegas trip, new sneakers, bottle service at some club. You didn't invest in a business, I said. You funded his party life. And now you're broke, and he's laughing at you behind your back. Dad's face went red. His hand trembled slightly as he shoved the phone back toward me. And in that moment, I realized, he wasn't angry because I was wrong. He was angry because I was right. For a long moment, Dad didn't say anything. He just stared at me, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. I could feel the weight of years pressing down on us, his authority, his control, the way he had always silenced me with a single look. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Finally, he muttered, so what do you expect me to do? Cut Ryan off? Leave him with nothing? I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. That's exactly what you should have done years ago. But you didn't. And now you've got a choice. His eyes narrowed. What choice? This family's sinking, I said. Ryan's reckless, and you're enabling him. If you keep pouring money into him, you'll lose everything. But if you actually want to salvage something, you're going to listen to me. For once. He let out a bitter laugh. You? The one who ran off, who couldn't even pay back a measly loan without whining about it. I smiled coldly. I did pay it back. You just never noticed, because it didn't come in the form of me kissing your ass like Ryan does. That shut him up. His eyes darkened, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice steady. You're going to stop funding Ryan. No more checks. No more bailouts. If he wants to keep wasting his life, let him do it on his own dime. As for you? You've got debts to worry about. Real ones. And you're going to help me, I suppose, he sneered. Not for free, I said. I'm done being the afterthought in this family. If you want my help, if you want me to step in and actually clean up this mess, you're going to give me something in return. He leaned forward, his eyes boring into mine. And what exactly is it you want, Maya? I didn't blink. I already knew my answer. The silence stretched between us, heavy and sharp, until finally I spoke. I want the house, I said, my voice firm. The one you and Mom are living in right now. Dad's eyebrows shot up. You've lost your damn mind. No, I replied evenly. I've finally come to my senses. You've poured everything into Ryan, and look where it got you. Debt. Embarrassment. A son who uses you like an ATM. I'm not bailing you out just to watch history repeat itself. If I help you stabilize things, if I take over where Ryan failed, you sign the deed over to me. His face turned red. Over my dead body. This house is mine. I built it. And yet, I said, leaning forward, it's crumbling around you. You're one bad financial move away from losing it to the bank anyway. At least this way, it stays in the family. With someone who actually knows how to handle money. He glared at me, breathing hard. I could almost hear the gears grinding in his head, the fury mixing with the realization that I wasn't bluffing. You think you're smarter than me? He growled. I don't think, I said quietly. I know. And deep down, so do you. That's why you hate me so much, because I don't need you the way Ryan does. For the first time, he didn't snap back. He just stared at me, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not respect, not yet, but recognition. I'll give you until the end of the week to decide, I said, standing. But understand this, Dad, if you say no, I walk away. And this time, I won't come back. I left the study without waiting for his answer. And for the first time in my life, I felt taller than him. I had barely stepped out of Dad's study when I heard the sound of the game controller hitting the couch. Ryan had paused his game and was staring at me with that smug grin he always wore when he thought he had the upper hand. So, he said, dragging the word out, what was all that about? You and Dad, whispering in there like some kind of power duo. Don't tell me you're actually trying to fix my business screw-up. I didn't answer. I just walked past him, heading for the kitchen. But of course, Ryan couldn't leave it alone. He followed me, leaning against the counter while I poured myself a glass of water. You know, Maya, he said, Dad's always going to choose me. Always. Doesn't matter how much you suck up, doesn't matter what deal you think you're making. You're wasting your time. I turned to face him, my expression calm. You mean the same Dad who's fuming over you blowing 50 grand? The same Dad who's drowning in paperwork right now because of your business? His smile faltered, just slightly. That's temporary. He knows I've got big ideas. He just believes in me. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Big ideas? Like bottle service in Vegas? Sneakers you'll sell for half their value in 3 months? Or maybe it's the app that nobody downloads because you don't know the first thing about running a company? That got to him. His face tightened, and for once, he didn't have a comeback. You think you're clever, he finally muttered. But if you're trying to make a play for Dad's attention, I'll find out. And when I do, don't think I won't shut you down. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You're already shut down, Ryan. You just don't know it yet. I left him standing there, fuming, as Mom quietly pretended to fold laundry in the corner, her eyes darting nervously between us. For the first time in years, Ryan wasn't the one in control. I was. The next few days dragged like quicksand. I stayed in town, partly because I wanted to show Dad I wasn't bluffing and partly because I knew Ryan wouldn't let this go. He sulked around the house, shooting me dirty looks, whispering to Mom whenever he thought I wasn't paying attention. Typical. He couldn't stand the idea of me stepping into his spotlight. By Thursday evening, Dad finally called me back into his study. He didn't waste time. I've thought about what you said, he began. His voice was gruff, but not as sharp as before. You want the house. In exchange, you'll, what? Manage things for me? Keep Ryan in line? I'll take over the finances, I said. I'll make sure the bills are paid, that what's left of your savings doesn't vanish, and that Ryan doesn't drag you down any further. But yes, the deed has to be in my name. No loopholes. His eyes narrowed. You're asking me to hand over my legacy. No, I corrected. I'm asking you to hand it to someone who won't burn it to the ground. He stared at me for a long time before finally sighing. Fine. I'll contact the lawyer tomorrow. But if you screw this up, Maya. I won't, I said, cutting him off. I walked out of that study with my heart pounding, because I knew I had just won the battle I'd been fighting my whole life. But the war wasn't over. Later that night, I overheard Ryan in the kitchen, hissing into his phone. She's trying to take the house. I don't care what it costs, find me a lawyer. She's not stealing what's mine. I smiled in the dark hallway, unseen. Ryan still thought he could beat me. But this time, I had proof, leverage, and Dad's signature waiting on the dotted line. And I wasn't about to let my brother ruin it. Ryan moved fast. By Saturday morning, I woke up to a call from an unknown number. It was a lawyer, his lawyer. Miss, the voice said, I've been retained by your brother, Ryan, to contest your father's intent to transfer ownership of the house. He claims you've coerced your father into making an unfair decision. I almost laughed. Coerced? If only he knew. But instead of arguing, I thanked the lawyer for his time and hung up. Ryan was scrambling, desperate, and that gave me the upper hand. At breakfast, I decided to call him out. He was halfway through a bowl of cereal when I set my phone down on the table. Nice move, I said casually. Lawyer and everything. Very professional for someone who doesn't know how to spell half the time. He froze, spoon in hand. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I do, I said, leaning forward. I also know you used Dad's credit card to pay the retainer. Want me to show him the receipt? Or should I just forward the screenshots I already have? His face went pale. I had spent the last few nights combing through Dad's bank statements while he pretended not to notice. Ryan's fingerprints were all over them, late-night charges, wire transfers, even a suspicious payment to some consultant that screamed scam. You're bluffing, he muttered. I unlocked my phone, tapped the screen, and slid it across the table. His jaw dropped at the evidence staring back at him. This is the difference between us, Ryan, I said calmly. You play games. I play to win. Before he could reply, Dad walked in. His eyes moved between us, sharp and suspicious. What's going on here? He asked. I smiled, picking up my phone. Just explaining to Ryan why he should stop wasting everyone's time. For once, Ryan didn't have a single word to say. Dad stood there in the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes boring into Ryan. What's she talking about? He demanded. Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his spoon clinking against the bowl. Nothing. She's just trying to stir things up. Same old Maya, always looking for attention. Really? I said, pulling up the bank statement on my phone. I turned the screen toward Dad. Because this looks a lot like your credit card being used to pay Ryan's lawyer. Unless you suddenly started needing a business consultant in Miami? Dad's eyes narrowed as he snatched the phone from my hand. He scrolled, his jaw tightening with every line. When he finally looked up at Ryan, his face was red with fury. You stole from me, he barked. Ryan threw his hands up. It wasn't stealing. I was just borrowing. I was going to pay you back once the app took off. The app is dead. Dad roared. You wasted $50,000 and now you're digging into my accounts? Do you think money grows on trees? For once, Ryan didn't have a comeback. He sat there, silent, his face pale. I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever. This is exactly what I was talking about, Dad. He's not just reckless, he's dangerous to your future. You can't trust him with a single dime. But me? I've got no reason to bleed you dry. I'm the only one in this family who actually wants to build something that lasts. Dad looked at me then, and for the first time, there wasn't anger in his eyes. There was something else. Reluctant acknowledgement. You're right, he said slowly. If I'd listened to you sooner, maybe we wouldn't be in this mess. Ryan's head snapped up. Dad. Enough, Dad cut him off. From now on, I'll be dealing with Maya on these matters. You're finished. The look on Ryan's face was priceless: shock, betrayal, and rage all tangled together. And for the first time, I felt like justice was finally tipping my way. For the rest of the weekend, Ryan avoided me. He sulked in his room, slamming doors and stomping around like a teenager instead of a grown man. But I knew him too well: silence wasn't surrender. He was plotting something. And I was right. On Monday morning, just as I was packing up to head back to my apartment, Mom stopped me in the hallway. Her face was pale, her voice trembling. "Maya, I need to talk to you." She led me into the kitchen and slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a stack of printed emails, all addressed to Dad's lawyer. I skimmed them quickly and felt my stomach tighten. They were from Ryan. In them, he claimed I had manipulated Dad while he was emotionally vulnerable, pressured him into giving me the house, and even threatened to cut the family off financially if he didn't comply. Lies. All of it. "He's going to take this to court," Mom whispered, wringing her hands. "Maya, he's your brother. Can't you two just—" "No," I said firmly, cutting her off. "He crossed the line." That evening, before I left, I confronted Ryan in the driveway. He was leaning against his car, scrolling on his phone, acting smug like he always did when he thought he was one step ahead. "You think you're clever, don't you?" I said. He smirked. "Dad might buy your act, but the courts won't. Once my lawyer gets involved, you'll be exposed for the manipulative little brat you really are." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You sure you want to do that? Because if this goes to court, all those Vegas receipts, the fake consultant payments, the screenshots of your late-night transfers, they'll all come out. And you know what that looks like? Fraud." His smirk faltered, but I didn't stop. "You want to play dirty, Ryan? Fine. Just remember, I play to win." For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. And that's when I knew he was running out of moves. I didn't wait for Ryan to make his next move. If I'd learned anything from years of living in his shadow, it was that he thrived when people underestimated him. Not this time. This time, I was going to cut him off at the knees before he even had a chance to swing. The morning after our confrontation, I drove straight to Dad's lawyer's office. Mr. Caldwell had handled the family's affairs for decades: wills, property, contracts. He knew all of us, which meant he also knew exactly what kind of person Ryan was. I laid everything out on his desk: screenshots of Ryan's Instagram posts, copies of Dad's bank statements, the receipts for the so-called consultant, and even the emails Ryan had drafted accusing me of manipulation. When I finished, Caldwell leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised. "You've certainly come prepared, Maya." "I don't want to drag this into a public fight," I said. "But if Ryan pushes, I'll have no choice but to let all of this come out in court. I need the deed signed over cleanly, with no loopholes for him to exploit." Caldwell tapped his pen against the folder. "Legally speaking, your father has every right to transfer ownership. Ryan's claims won't hold water, not with this evidence. If anything, he should be worried about facing charges." I exhaled slowly, tension I hadn't realized I was holding finally releasing. By Friday, the paperwork was ready. Dad signed it in Caldwell's office, his signature shaky but resolute. "You'd better not regret this," he muttered, sliding the pen across the table. "I won't," I said, and I meant it. That night, when I got back to the house, Ryan was waiting for me. His face was pale, his fists clenched. "You think you've won?" he spat. "This isn't over." I didn't flinch. I walked right past him, keys to the house in my bag, and whispered, "Yes, it is." For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving in that family. I was in control. The following weeks felt like stepping into a new life. For the first time, the house wasn't just a place where I felt small, it was mine. The lawyer had filed the paperwork, the deed was in my name, and there was nothing Ryan could do to stop it. At first, he tried. He sulked, begged, threatened, even tried to guilt-trip Mom into siding with him. But the truth was too heavy. Every receipt, every charge, every careless post he'd made online, it all spoke louder than his excuses. Eventually, Dad shut him down completely. No more bailouts, no more checks. Watching Ryan realize his free ride was over was the sweetest revenge I could have asked for. He had spent his whole life coasting on favoritism, while I had been forced to build myself from the ground up. Now, the tables had turned. But my revenge wasn't just about taking the house, it was about taking back my dignity. I finally stopped chasing their approval. I stopped trying to prove myself to people who had never wanted to see me. Instead, I put my energy into making the house something new, something mine. I renovated the study, tore down the heavy curtains, painted the walls bright. I hosted friends for dinners, laughter filling the rooms where silence used to choke me. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a glass of wine, Mom came out and sat beside me. She was quiet for a long time before finally saying, "You were right, Maya. About everything. We should have treated you better." I didn't say anything at first. But then I looked at her and said, "It's not about what I deserve then. It's about what I won't accept anymore." For once, she nodded, like she finally understood. Ryan faded into the background, chasing some other scheme. Dad never apologized outright, but I saw it in the way he stopped questioning me, the way he listened when I spoke. That was enough. I had taken back my power. My revenge wasn't loud or violent, it was quiet, steady, undeniable. And in the end, I won.